Here we have a graph of the tuition since 1987 at Portland State University. Along this axis, we have our year, which you can see here. We have our resident undergraduate price per year, our non-resident undergraduate price per year, and the derivative of both of those per year. What I mean when I say derivative is I just mean the difference between the price at this point and the price at this point. So the difference that a student paid in 1988 compared to a student in 1987 was $69. And the reason that I've highlighted this value for the non-resident is because it is the only point on the graph that has a negative value, meaning that the student in 1988 paid less than the student in 1987. We do not see this anywhere else and is an absolute anomaly. At every given point along the graph, the student of the following year has paid more than the student of the previous year. As we can see, the increase is steady, but near the top, it's starting to get to the point where there's a $617 gap compared to something like 1998 where there's only a $15 gap. So this is definitely something that is concerning for the future as the prices continue to increase at the rate that they do. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this graph right here, which is the inflation compared to tuition differences per year. So I use the word inflation, but really what I'm doing is I'm taking the percentage of difference. So it's just like the numbers graph, except I'm showing percentages instead of raw values. All of this is reference material that helped me create the graph and is not important for understanding what's going on here. To kind of clear up some confusion on this graph, we only really want to focus on the orange and gray lines. The orange line is the residential inflation per year, and the gray line is the non-residential inflation. This blue line right here is the national inflation rate, which is only used as a guideline and does not affect the tuition rate in any way whatsoever. It's only used to show how tuition rate compares to national inflation rate throughout the years. The columns that we're really focusing on right here is the year column, which is the same as the previous graph, the inflation compared to the CPI, and CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. Consumer Price Index is the average cost of everyday goods. So how much does beer cost? How much does food cost? How much does clothing cost? Things like that. It's all cataloged and compared and given an average value. And this is how much more it costs per year compared to the previous year, just like what we did with the derivative graph. And this is essentially the derivative graph, but put in a percentage form, which is why our 2% right here is bolded again, where this is actually a negative 2%. But we don't have data from 1986 to kind of show that, but this is a negative value, and we know that because we can look at the numbers from the number graph. What I really wanted to show here today was this value at 2005, which we saw was the highest bump, or $3,000 difference. Well, what we see here is that equates to a 20.9% increase, which is represented by this line right here. What's so shocking about this is that at 20.9%, that means that the average student and the average non-resident student, undergraduate student, paid 20.9% greater, and then the following year they paid a 1.52% amount that is even greater than that. So to put it in a number sense, what I did was I took the value, the derivative of what the student of 2004 paid, the undergraduate and non-resident student 2004 paid, which is a $408 increase, then added the price hike of 2005, which is $3,192, then added the price hike of 2006, which is $259, and the sum total was that if you were to go to school at Portland State for your first year in 2004, you would have paid $408 more than the previous year, but by the time of your third year at 2006, you would have paid $3,859 more than you paid when you first got here. That is unbelievably large. That is a massive difference in price for being in the same 4-year term, the same 4-year degree schedule. What I really want to show with this graph is that the point between here, and here is really just the sum of this point and this point. And the point from here, which is the starting point of the graph, to here, which is the final point of the graph, is the sum of every other point added together. Now, the reason it's the sum of every other point is because this is all positive. Every single number on this graph is positive, meaning that everything gets added together. Every point is that much more than the previous point. So this point right here, which is way up, really high up, the 20.9% value, is actually less than this value, which is 20.9% plus the 1.52%. Now, that's kind of hard to visualize, but what we're saying is that as the graph is continually positive, it continually raises in price, which is how we get something that looks like our number graph, where the non-resident undergraduate value spikes so high from where we started. It's because it's continually adding on top of itself.
The tuition rate increase at PSU drains more than just our wallets. It drains our hearts. With skyrocketing class costs and university fees, students must compromise their funds for food, rent, clothing, textbooks, and other life expenses. Many of us pick up a job or take out loans to afford college. This stress does not make learning any easier. Our data shows that this added stress is only worsening. Every year, a PSU student pays more than the year before.
I don't know if the graph was wholly effective, but we really need to address what was just said. We really need to address that things are getting worse, and they have been getting worse for a long time, and there's no ceasage of them getting worse. This is an issue that has pervaded us and college students for the past 23 years of data that we have, but we know that there have been more and there will be more in the future. This is something that we need to be aware of. It's getting to the point that we can no longer just ignore or accept that student loans are an acceptable portion of going to college. We now need to understand what it is that they do and how they've been unregulated for so long. Being unregulated, tuition increase has caused students to take out higher and higher student loans, and that's what I was really trying to harp on with the graph, was that the price per arbitrary education unit that you pay today is not the same price someone paid 5 years ago, and is not the same price someone will pay 5 years from now. We are accepting student loans as a necessary part of college, and it's something that we'll just have to deal with later in life. But it's not that simple. It's something that grows at an unregulated pace, and it's something that we must worry about, because if something is able to grow at a pace that's asymptotic, then we can't ever say that, oh, it'll get better at this point. All we can say is that this bubble will continue to grow until it pops under its own weight. And we've seen this similar situation happen before with the housing crisis market, with the dot-com bubble. This is nothing new. And from the looks of it, there's no way to avoid it. It's just something people need to be aware of as taking out student loans becomes a necessity for many people to be able to afford college.